Let's do a little experiment. When you think of video games that take place in the apocalypse, what do you think of? Maybe your first thought is Fallout, or Borderlands, or The Last of Us, or the many others. But there is one game that you probably don't think of as an apocalypse, and that is the water wasteland of Raft. For those of you who don't know, Raft is an open world game made by the Swedish development company Red Beat Interactive and published by Axolotl Games. In Raft, you play as a survivor on a little 2x2 raft in the middle of the ocean. You are tasked to explore and expand your raft by grabbing all materials from this little constant stream of debris floating in the ocean. Later on, you find multiple locations that show what life is like living in the vast ocean. Visiting these locations help you piece together a story of people and fear. A story that I want to piece together in a separate video. Right now, I want to focus on that little apocalypse detail. You see, when you spawn in, you have a little journal that has a picture of a family, presumably yours, it'd be weird if it wasn't, and a little note saying, "The world is gone, but its people still remain." Now, that caught me off guard. What could have happened for the world to be like this? An aquatic wasteland as empty as my head and as dangerous as the voices in my head? Today, I want to find that out, and I think I have a pretty good idea of what happened. So without further ado, this is how the Raft apocalypse happened. First off, we have our theory. Now, I've mentioned before that I am not a theory guy. That's not my job. I'm just here to explain and observe. But I think I can make a good case with this. My theory is that Raft takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where sea levels have risen so much that the world has been flooded to the point where only islands are left. I have three different types of evidence for this claim, so let's get into them. The first piece of evidence is the lack of ice in the game. There is no place where ice is seen or shown. This is important because one of the reasons sea levels are rising in the real world, there is no source of ice or snow in this world. Even though later on we do get a snow-like area as one of the locations, the island is way too small compared to the ocean itself. Although, there is another big way water could be responsible for these vast oceans, and that is flooding. Back in community college, I took a geology class that also included rivers, deserts, and glaciers, and honestly, that's where I had the idea to make this video. In this class, we learned how floods are caused and formed. This could also help explain the large amounts of water in the game. One word. Rain. If it rains for a long period of time and consistently, water will start seeping into the soil. However, soil has a limit of how much it can absorb, and if it hits that limit, then the water will have nowhere to go, therefore causing a flood. Now, how is this knowledge relevant to Raft? Well, if you've ever played Raft, you will know that it rains a lot. Almost every day it rains. So with the combination of large amounts of rain and soil that has already hit its capacity of water, then it would be plausible for these water levels to rise. Now, that's the cause of these super high sea levels, but if the sea levels are so high, then why do we still see islands if the entire world is covered in water? Well, there is a simple explanation for that. That simple explanation is that all of the islands we see are at high enough elevations that they don't fully sink due to the sea levels. The best evidence for this is that when it comes to every island we see, there is a deep drop into the ocean. And even the big islands that have beaches have super deep drops to the point where you can't even see the bottom. My thought is that when the ocean's levels rise, the really tall islands are still able to thrive, and all of the vegetation was able to grow upwards. Now, to further prove that this is the entire world and not just part of it, there are different kinds of islands that are prominent in different parts of the world. Obviously, there are a lot of tropical islands, but there are also northern forested islands like Balboa Island, which have the vegetation and wildlife that are more prominent in the northern parts of the world, and more desert-like islands like Caravan Town, which have more attributes that are closer to the places down under, like Australia and New Zealand. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What about the animals? I mean, if all the land is gone, shouldn't we have a lot of animals being extinct? Well, yes and no. Now, I had this thought too. It came from the thought that there is a shark constantly swimming around your raft. Even if you kill it, another one will spawn to take its place. Then I had that thought about the rest of the animals in the game, like bears, llamas, and warthogs. And I have an explanation for that. But let's talk about the shark first. The shark that is constantly eating your raft resembles the common great white shark. Even though that this is a smaller version, this could possibly just be a younger shark. Now look at a map where great white sharks are common. What's this? Northern tropic and deserted areas? What a coinky dink. Great white sharks are able to travel long distances for migration, and when it sees something that entices them, like your raft, a large floating object that they can nibble on every once in a while, they would definitely act up. So that's a possible explanation for why there are so many sharks in large quantities. However, what about the other land animals? Now, I don't know if this was intentional by the developers, but every sentient land animal in Raft has the ability to climb large elevations. Bears, warthogs, llamas, goats, and even rats can climb steep slopes, if you even want to call this a rat. And obviously cluckers and screechers can fly, so there's no problem there. So now that there's an explanation for the abundance of certain animals, there is still one big piece of evidence that can help prove this theory. And you see it as soon as you start the game. That's right, I'm talking about the materials you get from the constant stream that always follows your raft. That was one of the biggest differences that set Raft apart from other survival games. There was a constant flow of materials and objects that the player can get to expand and advance their raft. A simple explanation for this is that all this debris is coming from the world that once was. The most common things you get are wood, plastic, leaves, and sometimes barrels containing scrap, rocks, ropes, and even sometimes food. All of these can be found anywhere you go. And to further prove this flood theory, you can find these same objects on the ocean floors of these islands. Sometimes you even see little small structures that maybe people used to inhabit when they were living on land. Honestly, it's scary thinking about how terrifying this ocean is. I mean, for so long we saw the ocean as this unfamiliar territory where we didn't know what was in it. And to some extent, we still don't. We use the oceans in stories and myths where people are going off on adventures and finding terrifying things. We see the ocean as something to conquer, and that's why I think Raft is so interesting. You are one person in this dinky sheet of wood where water is as far as the eye can see. You start to take on the ocean and expand your raft to the point where it could be considered a small town, while in the process finding the scraps of a society that once was, giving us hope that maybe in this waterbed of an apocalypse, we can find a way to revive the world that was gone so long ago. And that's the story of Raft. I think we've made a pretty good case, and if the devs make something that totally disproves this theory, it's still fun to think about. I hope you liked the video. If you have any further proof that could help this theory, then let me know in the comments. Raft is one of my favorite games, and I definitely plan on making more retrospective videos on it, and maybe even gameplay. Who knows? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Make sure to follow my socials in the description to stay updated on what and when I post, and also have a say in what I make next. I also post my art on there, so go give it a follow. Also, check out the end card for more videos. Thank you for watching again, and in the meantime, make sure to relax today.